All right, this is going to be my little tutorial on triads. Forgive me if you've seen a lot of this before. I kind of just want to load everything into the cache so it's there at once, and hopefully it'll make some connections. So some of this is pretty foundational, but you know it fits into the global model of how to visualize the fretboard, right? So first, I just want to start off with C major scale. So you're familiar, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. Normally when talking about this kind of thing, it's easier to think in terms of scale degree, like what function that note serves. So the C is our root, that's our one chord, two, or one note, D is our two, E is our three, yada yada, right? So the way all triads are made, they're just stacked thirds. What is a third? A third is you take a note, you skip a note, you take a note, right? So 1 to 3 is a third. 3 to 5 is also a third. You take a note, you skip a note, you take a note, right? So the first triad, the C triad, C major triad, is 1, 3, 5, right? Take, skip, take. So the second chord, the second triad, is thus 2, skip, 4, skip, 6. 2, 4, 6. Third, 3, 5, 7. The fourth one is 4, 6, 1. The fifth one is 5, 7, 2. The sixth one is 6, 1, 3. The seventh one is 7, 2, 4, right? Take one, skip one, skip one. 1, 3, 5, 2, 4, 6. So yeah, hopefully you get that. If not, we can drill into that. Just let me know. Now, what does this actually look like on the fretboard, right? Easy enough in theory, but we have to kind of think about in terms of a fretboard. And something I find very useful is to, instead of be thinking, oh, these are the shapes and scales and blah, 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 here's where I am, I'm on the 6th fret of note of string A. I like to think of it as kind of this just infinite fretboard. So the nut's up here, and just these are tons and tons of strings going forever in any direction. Don't think of what string you're on, just think of how the strings relate to each other, right? So we're going to start here on a random note. I have no fucking clue what key we're in. I'm just going to call this note our 1, right? Oops. So this is our 1. Let's build a scale around that, right? So our 2 is right here, right? That's a major 2. And then our 3, skip a note, here's our 3, right? So 1, 2, 3, easy enough on one string, right? Jump into the next string is a little harder. Guitar uses perfect fourths tuning, so that means that if this is your 1, you have a 4 right next to it. That is a very good relationship to memorize, because if you know, hey, I always have a 4 wherever I have a 1, my 4 is right next to it, you get other notes for free, right? We know a third is right underneath a fourth, so we know this is a third, 1 to 3. So remember that shape, remember that relationship. If we know this is a 4, we know the note right under it is a 5. So this shape right here, that's always a 5th. So like power chords, you should recognize that from. So just by knowing this is a perfect fourths tuning, you get 3 and 5 for free, right? Now, if you're a little bit fancy and you remember that a power chord is 1, 5, 1, like this, a little power chord shape that you use, that means that a fourth over your 5, because the strings are a fourth apart, this to this is a fourth. If you start on a 5 and you add a fourth, you get an octave, right? 1, 5, 1. So that means that wherever a 5 is here, this is a 1, right? So if we have a 1 here, that means there's a 5 here. So that might have been a little confusing. I apologize. It's just doing math with intervals. We know that a fourth plus a fifth equals an octave, right? If I go up 1, I'm adding a fourth. If I go up 1, down 2, I'm adding a 5. So up 1, down 2, add 1, a fourth plus a fifth equals an octave. Okay, so 1 and 5 right there. So those are the main relationships I want you to memorize when we're going through all this. On your infinite fretboard, wherever you have a 1, if you just go down a string, that's a 5. 1 to 5. Wherever I have a 1, if I go up a string and up a fret, that's a 3. Wherever I have a 1, if I go up a fret, down, or up a string, down 2 frets, I get a 5. Those are our core relationships that everything is derived from, right? There's one more I want you to kind of keep in your mind, and that is, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This 3 to a 5, that is a very valuable one to know too. So 3, up a string, up 2 frets, that gets you to a 5. So wherever you are that you have a 3, a 5 is right here, right? So we're going to get a little practice deriving triads using these relationships, these core shapes, right? These 4 core shapes are all you need to derive any triad anywhere you are around the neck. So each color is its own triad. It's not all in one key. I just chose arbitrary notes just to go through this. But let's start with the red. So let's arbitrarily choose this note. I am calling it a 1. We are now going to derive a triad starting on the 1. Well, wherever there's a 1, I know that there's a 3 right above me, right? We learned that relationship on the last slide. So 1 to 3. Okay, now I'm on the 3. Where is a 5? Well, I know anytime there's a 3, there's a 5 right here. Up a string, up 2 frets. Just like we went over on the last slide. So I start here. I want a triad. 1, 3, 5. Boom, super easy. Now let's use the exact same rules. But let's make a triad starting on a 5 instead of on a 1. So I know wherever I am, if I have a 5, right above it is a 1, right? So 5, 1. I know that wherever I have a 1 string and up 1 fret, that's a 3. 5, 1, 3. Boom, we have another triad. Cool. So easy, right? Now let's make a triad starting on the 3. So I arbitrarily have a note. I'm calling this a 3. I know that wherever there's a 3, up a string, up 2 frets, that's a 5. Cool. Now I know wherever I have a 5, up a string, that's a 1. So this is all just using these same relationships. If I have a 1, there's a 3. If I have a 1, there's a 5. If I have a 5, there's a 1. If I have a 3, there's a 5. I know where all of them live just from these couple of simple relationships. 1, go up, there's a 3. Go up, there's a 5. 5, I know there's a 1 there. 1, I know there's a 3 there. 3, I know there's a 5. I know there's a 1. Super simple. So let's go through this with shapes, chord shapes that you should know. This is your E-shaped bar chord, right? So, 6th string rooted bar chord. There's a note that we skip in that chord, which is that 3 up here. But if I'm starting here and I want a 3, I know that a 3 always lives right here relative to the 1, right? So 1, 3. Now 3, 4, 5. I know that there's a 5 that lives right here relative to a 1. So our triad right now, we have 1, 3, 5. Now from a 5, we can get to a 1. We know that a 5 always has a 1 above it. We know a 1 has a 3 that lives right here. We know a 3 has a 5. Notice the B string. The B string is the worst. It messes up all the pretty patterns. Everything's shifted down a note. 1 to 3, 3 to 5, and we know anywhere we have a 5, we have a 1 right above it. So just following those couple of simple rules, boom, we're able to derive that E major shape. Now we leave that out because you can't play 2 notes on 1 string as a chord, but it's there if you're playing like the arpeggio. All right, exact same rules. Let's go through them again, but with an A shape. So this is your A-shaped bar chord. Wherever you play rooted on the A string. If this is your root, we know there's a 5 that lives right there. If this is your root, we know there's a 3 that lives right there. So 1, 3, 5, 1, 3, 5. Notice the B string fuckery again. You get used to it after doing it a million times, but yeah, it fucking sucks. So 1, 3, 5, 1, 3, 5. Oh my gosh, we have the bar shape that we're familiar with, right? Finally, let's take the C-shaped chord. So C-shaped chord has a root on the A string. There's a 5 below it. There's a third above it. This 3 has a 5. This 5 has a 1. Fuck you, B string. 1, 3, 5, right? So those same shape, all these shapes that you should be familiar with for chords and arpeggios and other things, they all come from those couple of simple relationships between triads. So this is a lot, but let's build all of the possible triads on all pairs of strings for a given chord, right? So like that, let's say this is the, what is this? E, F, G. So shit, no, I did that wrong. A, B, C, C sharp. Okay. So, oh no, this is straight up C. Sorry. Ignore me. So we are going to make the C major triad all across the entire fretboard, right? C major is C, G, E, C, E, G, 1, 3, 5. This is what I'm talking about. Like, it makes it way too confusing if you think about what actual notes they are. So I always think about them as 1s, 3s, and 5s, right? So we know that this note is a C, and we want all of the C major notes. Well, I know behind me is a 5, above me is a 3, above me is a 5, 1, 3, right? So if I'm just chaining together 1, 3, 5, 1, 3, 5, what I get is this shape. Now I'm starting on the 1, 1, 3, 5, 1, 3, 5. That is the next triad run, where we're always increasing from 1, 3, 5, 1, 3, 5. None of this bullshit where we're skipping notes. We always go from 1 to 3. We always go from 3 to 5. We always go from 5 to 1, right? So 1, 3, 5, 1, 3, 5. You get this kind of weird shape. Don't memorize the shape, just know how to derive it, right? 3, we know from 3, 5, 5, 1, 1 to a 3, 3 to a 5, 5 to a 1, right? And so just get very intimate building these shapes. And in just these 3 shapes, you have every single in order triad on the entire neck. So just grab any set of 3 notes, like, ooh, boom. Here's a 1, 5, 3. That's a triad. 1, 3, 5, right here. That's a triad. That's a triad. That's a triad. Anytime you play a cluster of 3 of these notes, doesn't matter where it is, any 3 of these notes makes a voicing of the chord you care about, right? So in just this like short little compact format, you have every possible voicing of a given chord. And so that's kind of what the course that we're working on is playing with, is the fact that if you start with one of these triad shapes and then think about the notes around it, you can play melodies very chordally. Like you're based around here, and then you're seeing a scale on top of that around that. But this is your chord. And then very fluidly, if you want to jump down here, oh my God, now this is your chord, right? It might not make sense, let me know, but I'm rambling a little bit. We're going to skip that. I have only shown you major triads in this to avoid making this video fucking forever long and too wordy. I'm going to just skip the idea of minor triads, but you can derive it all yourself. Instead of this being the relationship, instead of it being 1 to 3, it actually goes 1 to 3 like that, right? Because this is the minor third, the flat third. So 1 to 3. And then the minor third has a 5 right here. So 1, 3, 5. You can and you should rederive all of the patterns that we're looking at in this video using minor triads too. It is a very good exercise to just sit here with fretboards and be like, oh, okay, well, blah, blah, blah. This is a 5, 1, minor 3, 5, 1 minor 3, and oh my god, that turns out that's the C minor arpeggio shape, right? Like, just play around with that kind of stuff and get fluid at it. So I wanted to go through a couple of exercises that you can do to kind of sear this into your mind, because it's a lot and it's weird and it's wordy, but it's actually a very simple concept that when you apply starts to make you see how everything kind of fits together at once. So first exercise, all of your arpeggio shapes. So caged, C-A-G-E-D, there's a C arpeggio, there's an A arpeggio, G, E, D. Learn them, preferably derive them, like just do it yourself on a fretboard diagram like this, and then just play them up and down, up and down, up and down until it's seared into your memory. Figure out how it lays over the scale. So if you know your C-shaped cage scale, play the C arpeggio, play the scale, play the C arpeggio, play the scale. Really start to feel how they link together. And there's major and minor arpeggios for all of them. You should learn all of them. Next, take sets of strings. So just strings 1, 2, 3, just strings 2, 3, 4, and figure out the triads on those strings. So like, oh, this is my 1, so 1, 3, 5, 1, 3, 5. Oh, if this is my 1, 2, 3, 3, 5, 3, fuck, I'm lost. 1. Yeah. But yeah, like just go through that and figure that out for all the sets of strings, right? Scales as triads. Do that thing I did at the beginning of the video. Go through your major chord and derive all of the chords that are inside the major scale. So go 1, 3, 5, and then play through the 1, 3, 5 up and down the scale. Then go 2, 4, 6. That's your 2 chord. Do 2, 4, 6 all up and down the scale. 3, 5, 7, like that. And just kind of like play the scale in triads. That one, real mindfuck, right? Meandering is this concept introduced by a book called Improvise for Real. I highly recommend the book. But it's kind of just like choose an arbitrary point. Don't think about where you are in terms of note name, like, oh, this is a C, this is a G. Just remember, am I on a 1, am I on a 3, or am I on a 5? And for any of those, you have a decision to make. You can either go up a string, or you can go down on the same string that you're on. So if I'm on a 3, I can go on a 5 up a string above me, or I can go on the 5 down the string I am. And so just like arbitrarily make those decisions and wander up and down the fretboard, just all over the place. And you'll find that you can actually keep track of where you are. You have no sense of like absolutely where you are. But if you can remember whether you're on a 5, 3, or a 1, you can get fucking over here, all just by remembering how triads fit together. I'm on a 3. Where's my 1? Where's my 5? Right? And then finally, use those triads to kind of navigate between pentatonic boxes and cage scales. So if I know my C shape really well, and I know my G shape really well, solo around with G, and then use a triad to get to C, and then solo around with C, right? Like go back and forth between them, and try to figure out how to connect all these things using triads as the connective tissue. Ideally, we would just be able to see all 7 notes in our head all across the fretboard at once, but that's not really reasonable. It's easy to kind of keep in mind how all these 3 notes fit together, and it's also a chord, it sounds nice, it's very useful musically, and then use that as the connective tissue between all of your other shapes. So yeah, this video is already probably way too long and wordy. Let me know if anything was confusing, and I'll try to go over it more clearly, but that is my brain dump on triads. Happy to drill down deeper or go higher level. Just let me know.